and welcome to this week's edition of Retire Well, brought to you by the team of Citizen Advisory Group. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and joining me in the studio is owner and financial advisor Kevin Bucher and financial advisor Pete Samanuk. We're so glad you're joining us today. You know, each and every week we dedicate our time on the show to help providing you with solid financial education, and we've got a powerful show for you today, which is on the heels of a show we did not that long ago that got a huge response. So you're going to want to stay with us to figure out what we are talking about today. But Kevin, Pete, so good to be here with both of you as it is each and every week. How are you?
Great.
Very well.
Great.
Very
Another
well.
fun topic.
Annuities,
I know. Right?
Yes. So the title of today's show is Annuity Truths, Separating Fact from Fiction. And we did a show, it was just you and I, Kevin, a couple weeks back. I know that a lot of folks have questions. There's a lot of misinformation and a lot of misconceptions out there about annuities. So I think that's probably why that show got such a huge response, is because folks are craving the right information, and most importantly, to see how this could fit into potentially a piece of their overall financial plan. So we're going to separate that fact from fiction for you today and dive a little deeper with both of you here on set. So before we dive in, Pete, I'll start with you. Can you briefly explain what an annuity actually is?
Yeah, and it's a loaded question because, I mean, they can be complicated, but that's where we're here to hopefully try to simplify that. And at its very core, the very base level of what an annuity is it's a contract. It's a contract between you and an insurance company, okay, that you're typically putting that into some sort of vehicle. It's a tax-deferred savings vehicle. And all annuities, they share two things. They're, number one, they're tax-deferred, okay, and then number two, they all offer some sort of guaranteed stream of payments in return for some sort of lump sum. But that again, that's very basic, that's very general, and we're going to try to break down in a lot more detail on exactly what that means. You know, there's all sorts of different annuities. We have fixed annuities, we have variable annuities, we have fixed indexed annuities, we have immediate annuities, and hopefully we can start to unpack some of that today.
Yes, because not all annuities are created equal, that's for sure. So let's start with what might be the most common criticism when folks lump all annuities into the same bucket, if you will. A lot of things I hear are, well, they come with really high fees. Now, that's true for some annuities, but not all annuities. So what do you want to say in response to that train of thought?
Yeah, I think it's important to point out that can be true. And we have certainly seen as advisors some annuity products that came with really high fees, fees that we felt were certainly much higher than they should have been, or made that product maybe look a little less appealing. But to your point, not all annuities are built the same and have the same features or have the same fee structure. So when we look at some of the different types of annuities, like Pete mentioned, that there's the traditional fixed rate annuity, sometimes that's called a multi-year guaranteed annuity. There is no built-in fee that's charged to the client account on that. So it's going to pay a fixed rate of interest, and that's exactly how much you're going to make without any type of a fee reduction. Fixed indexed annuities oftentimes come without a fee that's charged to the client account. Now, there can be riders that are attached to the policies that may come with fees, but generally that's going to be something you choose to add on for those additional benefits. But it is the variable annuities, as you mentioned, that typically come with some type of a fee, because those accounts are still invested in the stock market. But because they're an insurance contract, there's a layer of protection wrapped around the account, and that you're paying a fee for some of those insurance protections.
Right. So typically the high fee criticism is really tied to variable annuities, which are a specific kind, right?
Yeah, typically your higher fees are going to be found in the variable annuity structure, and which is why people say, I don't like annuities, and that's a big reason.
Exactly. Right. Well, and also
but
because
even at that, yes, you're paying a fee, but it's for some type of a feature.
Correct.
Yes, right.
So if that feature has a value to you in your individual situation, perhaps it's worth paying that fee. But that is where all annuities are kind of wrapped underneath that same wrapper, and they're tagged with their high fee products, which is not always the case.
Right. Well, and I think the danger with variable annuities is because you're subjected to not just the upside risk or the upside gain, but the downside risk. You're still paying that high fee when the market takes a hit, right?
Yeah. So a lot of times with variable annuities, I mean, we look at the annuity as kind of a structured product that's there for guarantees and to kind of provide some level of safety for you. So sometimes with the variable annuity mix, it's just difficult to take risk on with your insurance or the protected side of your portfolio, which is sometimes where you just have to tread lightly on what you're doing.
Right. Now, what about a performance? Because that's another criticism that you will hear sometimes. People often say, well, annuities underperform the market. So what's your response to that?
Yeah, so in a similar way, the annuity is not designed to outperform a stock market portfolio. You know, a lot of times they're placed for a very specific reason to provide you some sort of base level of guarantee or protection, and they're not going to perform as well as the stock market in most cases. You know, if stock markets are booming and someone is making 20, 25%, typically an annuity is not going to pay that same level, okay? But it's providing downside protection or some base level of guarantee, which is just super important for retirees and people that do need to start to mitigate some risk,
right,
you know, in their portfolio or overall situation. And again, annuities are not appropriate for everybody. You know, it's a word that it's typically a bad word. We've decided not to really back off of it just because it is so important, and it's a word that is just crammed down people's throats,
yes,
for lack of a better term, that we hear an annuity. Everyone's trying to sell me an annuity. Stay away from an annuity. And it's just not appropriate. And it just makes sense for
right,
some people, and in some situations it doesn't.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and again, it's a piece of someone's plan. It's not the whole plan. So how does the right kind of annuity really complement someone's overall financial plan?
Yeah, so I think going back quickly to the last question about performance, when we're comparing it to the market, well, what market are we comparing it to, right?
Good point, yeah.
We have to make sure we're making the right comparison. So for example, if we're comparing a variable annuity to the S&P 500 or some other market index, well, that is probably the appropriate comparison because we're comparing a market account to a market account. But if we're looking at a fixed rate annuity, well, we shouldn't be comparing that to the stock market. We should be comparing that to money market rates, CD rates, and then the fixed index annuity, I think the appropriate comparison there would be the bond markets.
Right.
So, again, everything always tends to get lumped in together when we're making these comparisons, and it's not a fair comparison because of the risk characteristics of those different accounts.
Right. So you have to understand what you're comparing it to and try to do apples to apples, oranges to oranges,
Yeah,
right?
and
as
apples
much
to
as
apples
possible.
is a good metaphor you're using there, but it's like when someone says they don't like an annuity, it's like saying I don't like food.
Right.
And you might not like certain types of food. I don't like grapefruit. There's not a whole lot of food I don't like, but grapefruit's one of them. And you just wouldn't say I don't like food. Well, you don't like this certain type of food, but there's typically something that's suitable or makes sense just depending on what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
So
and
apples for apples is important.
Sometimes when we're meeting with folks for the first time, sometimes they're dug into their position about annuities without really having an open mind about it.
Without having the proper education on it, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So kind of using the food comparison that Pete was using, I just realized as a 53-year-old that I actually like peas.
You never knew that.
I did not know that because I was very closed-minded. I thought I didn't like peas and I really wasn't willing to try them, but somehow it ended up on my plate. I actually like peas.
Nice.
So maybe the right annuity, if you have the right information and context with it, maybe an annuity isn't as bad as maybe you were thinking it was.
And I'm going through a very similar thing with my 3-year-old at home, trying to get her to eat peas. So,
That's awesome. Well, I was going to say, but if we continue
steps.
this analogy, your taste buds change as well. Your tolerances change. That's true that maybe before an annuity might not have been the right thing to answer a need you have, but as we get older, as we are looking to protect our hard-earned money, that's where maybe our taste buds have changed. It's time to introduce some of this new flavor, if you will, into our financial plan.
And I don't own an annuity. I'm 38. Personally, I do not own an annuity. It doesn't make sense for me. It's not suitable. It doesn't fit into my personal financial plan and situation.
At this stage of your life.
But my parents do because their stage of life and what they're trying to do is just the best fit. So
well, I'm just really surprised that you're only 38.
Thank you.
But that just
wisdom.
So that just kind of leads into the value of doing this retirement checkpoint review.
Yes.
Because it's going to be a check-in with where you are at currently. and making sure that your current plan is in line with your goals and objectives, because the goals and objectives do change as we go through life. So the retirement checkpoint review is going to walk you through your investment plan, retirement income strategy, your tax plan, your risk management around the different insurances, and then your legacy and estate plan, all of which is a moment in time that you're going to be changing as you go through life and your goals and objectives change. So it's a really important step to see where you're at today and help you get on the path that you want to be on for tomorrow.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Kevin, Pete, thank you so much. And to our viewers at home, we've got a lot more great content for you. But if this is resonating with you at all, if maybe this is bringing up some things that you haven't thought of before and you want to see how this could potentially fit as part of your financial plan, we encourage you to reach out. The team of Citizen Advisory Group would love to sit down with you and provide you with your very own complimentary retirement checkpoint review. To schedule yours, simply call 866-630-1675, or if you'd rather connect online, you can scan that QR code and that will get you connected as well. When we come back, what about liquidity with your money? What about control over your hard-earned money? We'll tackle those two things and talk about separating fact from fiction regarding annuities in those categories right after this.
Do you own an annuity? Are you aware what type of annuity you own? For years, annuities have been a cornerstone of retirement planning, but they're not all created equal, and your current annuity might not be serving your retirement goals. The good news is, rising interest rates could mean better guarantees and better benefits for your annuity. If your annuity is not working for you, wouldn't you like to know sooner than later? Call now for your complimentary annuity review. As individuals, we strive for better, from a better house, to a better career, to a better life for our kids. But when it comes to your retirement, what does better mean to you? More income? A flexible lifestyle? Better solutions? A better retirement begins with a plan. To get your complimentary written financial plan, call the number you see here. You only retire once. This is your opportunity to plan for better.
Did you know Uncle Sam might be your partner in retirement? It's true. You may have a 401k, IRA, pension, or similar retirement accounts. They're all tax targets. But how much? Get our easy-to-use tax calculator and plug in the numbers. Scan the QR code or go to mytaxbilltest.com to find out your potential tax liability.
Welcome back to Retire Well. I'm Kristen Oakley here with both Kevin and Pete from Citizen Advisory Group, where today we are separating fact from fiction when it comes to annuities. We know there's a lot of questions out there. There's a lot of misinformation, a lot of confusion, so we're doing our best to clear a lot of that up for you today. The next thing we need to address, guys, is I know this is something I've heard a lot as well. Again, when people are putting all annuities in the same category, which we know that they're not the same, we've talked about that a little bit already, but a common criticism that I hear is, well, annuities lock up your money, leaving you with no flexibility or access to your own money if you need it. So let me ask you, fact or fiction?
For the most part, fact. Just as far as there are surrender charge schedules that you're typically putting yourself into. Okay, most annuities have a period of you have to keep 100% of your money plus the earnings in there anywhere between 2 to possibly 10 years, okay? But there are a lot of misconceptions around that. Is number one, there's typically 10% available, okay, for people, is that you can typically get 10% of your money per year without penalty, or get some sort of guaranteed payment that's underlying. But the main point to make here is that we work on both sides of this fence, right? Again, we don't care if you have money in annuities. We don't care if all of your money's in the stock market and you're comfortable with that. We have to have balance in our plan, okay? So we can't have all of our money in fixed and structured products like annuities, just the same as we really can't have all of our money with a well-balanced retirement plan in all stock market types of things. So you have to have your assets for liquidity, and we have to have some structure in there with things like annuities, potentially, if that's what makes sense for you too.
Right, so there are some liquidity concerns to think through, but if someone doesn't need the money for a certain period of time and it's achieving an objective that would fit,
Correct.
then it could be the right thing.
Yeah,
right?
and it is. It's like it's a contract and it's a structured product. You know, it's like getting into a lease. You know, if you sign a lease for 4 years and the landlord said, we're not going to increase rent on you in the next 5 years, that's typically going to be good for you, right? But if rent went down in that period of time, you're locked into that lease. It's kind of similar with annuities. You know, you're actually putting the insurance company on the hook. They have a contractual obligation to you, you know, just like you do to them.
Exactly, right. So there's some nuances with that.
Yeah, and I think what comes to my mind on this topic is the challenge or the problem, I think, in the marketplace is too often these annuity products are sold outside of a comprehensive financial plan. So oftentimes they're sold by agents or advisors that's their primary business model.
That's the only thing they can offer a lot of times,
Yes,
right?
only thing they can offer, and so they're sold outside of a financial plan, and it's a transaction as a part of a piece of a comprehensive plan. So if it's part of a comprehensive financial plan that is addressing the issue of liquidity, the plan itself, well, you can get around the constraints that you have on the annuity policy. But it is important to point out that you do have some access to the funds while you're within the term length. But again, it's more of an issue of we need to do this in a part of a comprehensive plan as opposed to being sold as a transactional event that's not really, it's just a transaction.
Yes, no, that's a really good point. I always say too, if all someone has to offer you is a hammer, then everything to them is going to look like a nail, right?
Yes.
And so that's why you have to consider the source and understand the context. And to your point, again, this is why we say this on the show a lot. It is so important to look at things from a comprehensive, holistic perspective, because how you make a decision in one area can affect the others. You can't afford to look at these things in silos.
Yeah, and right. We'll have, I'll run into people all the time, and they go and meet with an advisor or an investment representative, and it doesn't matter if that individual is 20 or 60 or 80 or 55, they know what product they're trying to sell you. I have no idea when I walk into a room with somebody, especially for a first meeting, what makes sense for them. I don't care if they're 80 years old, they could be 90, they could be 22. I have no idea what makes sense until we really start to peel back and figure out what is it that you're trying to do in your specific circumstance.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think to sum that up, if you're considering the purchase of an annuity or you already have an existing annuity, the question is why? And you should be able to answer the why. And there's plenty of whys. I mean, the show we did that kind of prompted this one was about the benefits of annuities. So the why could be because of the lifetime income guarantees that annuities provide, or it could be for the principal protection that some annuities provide, or it could be for the tax deferral. So there's plenty of reasons why, but you need to know why you have the annuity that you have.
I need to understand that for sure. One other misconception I think we need to hit on in this segment, that concern that you quote unquote lose control of your principal when you use annuities. How would you respond to that concern?
Well, I think that's, again, it's taking one specific type of annuity and then
blanketing
that
it
to all other types of annuities. So there are annuities, they're called immediate annuities, where you are making an exchange of your principal balance for a lifetime income stream, a series of payments. And you are losing control. You're losing control of that lump sum of money, and they're turning it into this series of payments. But that, again, is one specific type of annuity, and not all of them have that characteristic. Some of them, most of them, quite frankly, that are sold today are deferred annuities, where you do have control. You're retaining control. It's still going to have earnings potential. If you pass away and there's still a balance, that balance still passes on to your heirs. So you are keeping total control in those other deferred type of annuities.
Yeah, and it's important to note, like you said, it's quite uncommon that you have an annuity where you're giving up control of your principal. It's quite uncommon in today's marketplace and the way that products are structured today.
Yeah, there's been a lot of changes.
A lot of changes because it's not what's attractive to people.
Right, exactly. No, very, very true. Well, it sounds like there's lots of trade-offs involved too. And again, this is why there's no one size fits all. It has to be the right thing to accomplish the right goal for someone's plan, but again, it's just a piece of their plan. So I know you also mentioned you meet with a lot of folks who might already have an existing annuity contract. They might not even know what they actually have. So if someone's watching and they're in that situation, what would you say to them?
Oh my gosh, let's get together and go through this retirement checkpoint review and figure out why you have that annuity. And again, there's many reasons why you might have that, but it's really important in today's market that we are comparing an older annuity to annuities that are available in the marketplace today. Because we are in a higher interest rate environment than we have been for really over a decade, the products that are available on the market today might have superior benefits and terms, so it's really worth taking the time to sit down and compare the annuity that you previously had with what's available in the marketplace today.
What might you compare that to, like a refinance, right? You might be refinancing your debt when interest rates are low. Okay, so you have a high mortgage with a high rate and you refinance that. Similar to like annuities and what Kevin's talking about is when we have higher interest rates, we can refinance some of our structured products or some of the things that we have in our retirement portfolio to make sure we're getting the very best value for what's available today.
Right, and it's all about helping you potentially put yourself into an even better financial situation. So if any of this is resonating with you, we encourage you to pick up the phone, call the number on the bottom of your screen to schedule your time to come in and receive your very own complimentary retirement checkpoint review. 866-630-1675, or again, you're welcome to scan that QR code and that will get you connected as well. We'll be back with more right after this.
Imagine not having to face your retirement with the same old corporate solutions as everyone else. In these economic times, you deserve a fresh perspective that includes a personalized retirement income plan, investment portfolio analysis, and tax map from an independent fiduciary advisor whose focus is on you. Call the number you see here to schedule your complimentary review.
As individuals, we strive for better. From a better house, to a better career, to a better life for our kids. But when it comes to your retirement, what does better mean to you? More income? A flexible lifestyle? Better solutions? A better retirement begins with a plan. To get your complimentary written financial plan, call the number you see here. You only retire once. This is your opportunity to plan for better.
Welcome back to Retire Well. I'm Kristen Oakley here with both Kevin and Pete from Citizen Advisory Group, and we're so glad you're joining us today. Our conversation is called Annuity Truths, Separating Fact from Fiction. We know there's a lot of fact out there, or there's a lot of fiction, I should say. We want to provide the facts today, right? Let me get those two words mixed up around here. But another thing that we need to address is you've heard a common misconception. A lot of folks think, why would I even ever have an annuity as part of my IRA? I think this is an interesting one to address.
Yeah, well, so one of the characteristics of an annuity, a deferred annuity, is it provides tax deferral. So in the real world, IRA 401k accounts, they already provide that tax deferral. So there's no additional tax benefit for putting an annuity inside of your IRA account. But that doesn't mean that the annuity doesn't make sense for some of the other reasons that we talked about, right? So the annuity could still add value from an income standpoint. It could still add some principal protection depending on the type of annuity. So all of the benefits that we previously discussed still would be true inside the IRA, but it just doesn't have the tax advantage because the tax advantage is already there because of the nature of an IRA or 401k account, which is where we see the bulk of retirement savings dollars is setting inside tax-deferred pre-tax accounts like IRAs and 401ks.
So again, you have to look at all the different pieces.
Yeah, and you might even use, Roth IRAs, obviously, we talk about that a lot. They provide tax deferral as well. But again, if you're using the annuity for the right reason, just based on your specific circumstance, we might use an annuity with a Roth IRA. I have an individual that I can think of in his situation. It's very attractive that he's going to get like $4,000 a month for the rest of he and his spouse's life, completely tax-free. So we kind of weighed out the benefits to say, are we going to use these pre-tax dollars? Are we going to use the Roth? And we did decide to use some of the Roth dollars because it's tax-free income because it's a Roth IRA for the rest of their lives.
Right.
And that's just another thing that the annuity can provide.
Yeah, for sure. So that's why there's no one size fits all to any of this.
No, and it really comes down to preferences, right? So the financial planning world in some areas is black and white, but a lot of it is in the gray, and it comes down to preferences. And I think one of the most valuable things that an advisor can do is provide the framework for people to make decisions with the right information. So I think by nature, we know what we want. But there's just so much to financial planning that we don't maybe fully understand. So if an advisor can create that framework in a way that you now are informed and you can make the decisions, I think that's what people want. They want to be able to make those decisions based on their preferences, because there's 3 or 4 right ways to do something, but it comes down to your preferences.
Yep. And what would be best, right, at that certain time of your life, too, right? You're just discovering you like peas. You didn't before, right? You know you don't like grapefruit. We were talking earlier about that. Preferences change, right?
Yes. And it's important to say that it's also the job of a good financial planner and professional is not to give you too many choices either. Sometimes we can get so inundated with too many options.
Yes.
And it's our job to kind of package that. It's to let you know all the options, but to kind of say this, based on these options and what's out there, these are the 2 or 3 that I'm actually recommending. And we still might not go with that. I mean, everything's completely customizable, but it's our job too to kind of organize that and not overwhelm you in such a way that you're trying to make all these choices, because options are infinite.
Yes.
You know, it's infinite in our industry.
Well, you mentioned something important earlier that I just want to make sure our viewers understand. You were talking about how a lot of folks might have an existing annuity contract and they come in to meet with you to get a second opinion, which is a really smart thing to do. How often do you find that folks have no clue what they actually have going on in that annuity contract?
Unfortunately, it's way too often. So it's a challenge, it's a problem in our marketplace that these products are sold, and they're sold in, like I mentioned before, it's a transaction. So, you know, it really shouldn't be that way. Annuities are a solution that should be part of a comprehensive financial plan, and it really has to be for specific purposes. And if you do have an annuity policy and you don't know why you have it, well, now would be a good time to schedule that retirement checkpoint review so we can help you determine if that annuity is an appropriate fit for you and you should have that annuity at all, or if it's the right annuity for you. Maybe there's just a better option out here in the marketplace today. So take advantage of the complimentary retirement checkpoint review to make sure that you have the very best options for you and your situation and for you and your family.
Wonderful. Kevin, Pete, thank you so much. And thank you for your commitment to separating fact from fiction for our viewers. And thank you for joining us today. Again, that number to call is 866-630-1675, or you're welcome to scan that QR code to get connected for your very own complimentary retirement checkpoint review. Be safe, be happy, be blessed, and we look forward to being back with you next time here on Retire Well.